All right, we're on air. Today is Thursday, January 9th, and this is our weekly development meeting. Looking at the agenda for the day, it doesn't look like we have anything to discuss other than the progress of Backdrop CMS itself, which is good because this is the last meeting we have before the release. So it's good to focus on these issues before we do that. I'm going to turn it over to Nate to talk about progress of things since last week.
Okay. Let's see. So there's been some things that have come up in the 1.14.3 version, which I know is, that's the current release, that is interesting and that will probably be merging here shortly. And those changes, of course, will be in 1.14.3, which will come out, 6 days from now on January 15th, as well as in the 1.15 version. So the two items that we've got here include 2655, which is related to menu items not sorting correctly by alphabetical sorting in the admin toolbar. And so it actually turned out that this is a broad problem that we are attempting to do sorting in the admin toolbar, but our generic sort function doesn't always work correctly. So the backdrop sort function actually has some deficiencies in it. And so issue 2655 reworks the backdrop sort function. Also in the same process optimizes it a bit, it looks like, which is great. Last week when we looked at this, we said that we needed to do performance testing. Joseph came in and made a great suggestion there on how that should be implemented. And then both BW Panda and HerbDuel went through and benchmarked it separately, both with really pretty positive results. So that's looking great. It's been marked RTBC, and as it's passing all tests, which already have pretty good coverage on backdrop sort, then I think we're in a pretty good state.
Sorry, I wasn't following this issue. I'm aware of the problem, but I didn't read all the comments. Did we take into account the cases where we specifically want certain items to be listed at the top of lists? Like when you go under views, we want the settings thing to be the first item, even though it's not alphabetical. Has that been taken into account?
The actual ticket, the issue fixes the sorting in the admin menu, but doesn't actually change any code in admin menu at all. Okay. So I'm not actually sure what happens with things like those tabs. I'm pretty sure that they're not affected in any way.
Okay.
Because there isn't any actual change to admin bar in the code itself. Okay. Yeah, it's just changes to backdrop sort and then a fix to one of the filter tests. So I think that it still leaves the local tests up at the top, but we need to check the sandbox.
Okay, I will do
that. Let's see. Also, BW Panda also opened up this excellent issue relating to PHP 7.4 support, that there's a couple of deprecated notices that are coming up regarding a syntax that is no longer recommended. And that issue is 4263. A real simple fix just to change some squiggly brackets to square brackets, and then that's it. The broader question of PHP 7.4 support, we probably need a dedicated issue for that, which I don't think we have yet, to see if we need to make any other changes to make backdrop fully supported on 7.4.
Eventually, this will bring up the matter of deprecating support for 5.3, because at some point there will be things that will be incompatible with PHP 7 and beyond.
Yeah, eventually, although, yeah, we'll see. My initial thought is that it's like, well, we're kind of already in this weird hybrid world where we're not using all of the things that were bad ideas, out of PHP 5.3, but you're right that we'll probably run into something eventually that we use everywhere that is no longer supported. But that's a great point. And I think we diverging into the into the PHP support thing. We had supported PHP 5 for a really long time because we were going by the longest supported operating system vendor support, and CentOS supports PHP 5.3 until 2020 sometime, which may now have passed. And so we might well be beyond any vendor support for PHP 5.3, which means that maybe we should look at like getting rid of at least 5.3, which would mean even if we move to 5.4, just that 1 point version would mean that we could use like the shorthand array syntax, for example, and that would change a huge amount of code. Like every array in all of Backdrop, of which there are plenty. Yeah. So yeah, something for a later time, but yeah, really, interesting discussion there. And now that time has passed, we need to look at it again.
There are certain things that we have kept postponing over the years, like IE8 support and PHP 5.3 until the time has come. I think that the time is creeping up on us now slowly, as in now-ish.
The great thing is that, I mean, it's funny that we postpone these things because we're like, it's not really bothering us. It's not really bothering us until we get to the point that that thing really is absolutely completely irrelevant, and we're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Like we know, like I'm glad that we're not causing additional stress on our community just for the point of like just because we're supposed to, just because we want to deprecate it or just because we want to get rid of it, when really there's no particular need. But we are running into things every now and then, like this previous issue that we just talked about with Backdrop Sort, that BW Panda wrote something that was not compatible with 5.3, specifically PHP 5.3, and he wouldn't have had that problem if we were even one version newer.
Yeah, every now and then something creeps up in Contrib or third-party libraries, like the jQuery once thing that we had to fix at some point, I think, and then another issue that comes with countable arrays or objects. I can't remember now what it comes up with Devel. But yeah, we treat those as they come.
Do we need to update our coding standards for any of this stuff?
I don't think so.
I think if we moved to not require PHP 5.3, that we would probably want to update our coding standards for arrays. I think the short.
We'd want to rewrite all of our arrays in core, or like Drupal 8 did.
Actually, now that you say that, I don't know, because that would throw out the window all patch portability from Drupal 7.
That's what I was gonna say. It makes a lot of the patch stuff that I've been working on, where people are like, I did this in Drupal 8, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go through and like not only like refactor the patch for Drupal 8 to work for Drupal 7, but like rewrite all the array stuff, which is kind of a pain. I think we could definitely like leave okay, for something like this where there was that one thing where we went from square brackets to curly brackets, like we could very easily put in the coding standard stuff, like we always use square brackets because of X. But when that changes, we could do something like recommended because of X, but no longer strictly enforced or something like that. So that way, it's also going to get really hard though if like in some places we use one and some places we use the other. It's going to make the code really messy and hard for people to follow. Is there a like speed advantage for the new syntax?
Well, it's 6 less characters.
That's it. I'm not sure that's worth the change.
It's also more consistent across different languages, that it matches the array syntax of other things like JavaScript, for example. So there are some benefits just in terms of...
I think this might be a good PMC issue where it's like, here's the problem, here's what we could do. Let's figure out if this is worth it.
Yeah, we could also, I mean, I don't think that we should do it blanket across the whole code base. We could do things like standards within a function. Don't intermix, one syntax and the other. And then if possible, like within a file, don't intermix. And then we can go through and like iteratively switch things over.
I still think that could be really
possibly
confusing
also
for new developers though, where they're like, I don't understand why in this file it's written this way and in the other file it's written the other way.
Yeah, I think that it should be a sort of like one. Yeah, that's what Jason just said on Twitter now. first of all, we have hundreds of thousands, if not, I don't know, million lines of code, and like this will reduce the size of the. I'm mentioning the size. It's not really important nowadays, but each time that I update the release, I update the Wikipedia articles, and they mention how much the file size of the extracted code base that we have. I mean, we use arrays everywhere. It's gonna, yeah.
Yeah, but most of the time we're using a single square bracket that would change to a single squiggly bracket, and that's not going to be any reduction at all.
No. Yeah.
It's only when they're defined. And not even, because in PHP you don't have to define it. You could just go array square bracket whatever equals something else.
Yeah.
So
I think if we decide to go with it, I think that we should use a linter to just go through it and do it all. See if that thing is green, or the tests pass, and then just commit it and just be done with it.
For Backdrop 2, maybe?
Yeah, I guess. If there's no need to do it sooner, yeah.
I mean, I don't think we can drop a like PHP 5.3 support until Backdrop 2.
We might.
We might need to, though.
Unless PHP comes out with it being like security
Yes.
issues or whatever that are.
Right, which, I mean, they've already done that. Like, yeah. I mean, 5.3, we really, at this point, maybe we should start by, sorry, we totally got on derailed, but maybe we should start by go ahead and making a hook requirements warning that's saying, like, you should get off of this. Like,
Yeah, that would be good.
yeah.
Anyway, just so that people know that it's an issue.
Mhm.
Because I know there's a lot of hosting providers now provide a little checkbox. So they're like, oh, I didn't know that was a problem. You can just go switch it and it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Or select list or something.
Well, I tried to find how many instances of the word array, open parentheses, we have, but it like crashed my text editor. It's a lot. Okay, anyway, let's move on from that. Anyway, PHP, that one issue that was opened, still nonetheless, is a really great thing. Just, it's a couple of lines that fixes a deprecated syntax, so we avoid some warnings in 7.4. And those are all the two issues that we have for the 114.3 that I think are worth mentioning. However, there's like 5 or 6 other RTBC issues in the 114.3 milestone. I'll try to go through those and get them merged in as soon as possible as well. Next up is 115. 115 is the next version. It's coming out in 6 days. That's next Wednesday on January 15th. So we went over what was merged into 115 last week, and we're not going to recap those during this meeting, but we want to focus on the remaining things that we have to do in the next 6 days, which are, from a code perspective, fairly minimal. We put a new news block into the dashboard to make it so that the dashboard could show you news items from backdropcms.org that's delivered via a feed. And there's an issue, well, 2 issues. One is that we need to make a decision or policy around what kind of news should appear in this feed. So that's issue 625 in the backdropcms.org issue queue. It would also be good just to check the current list of 3 or 4 news items that we're currently delivering in the feed, and just make sure that those things are, suitable for when people update their sites or install new backdrop sites, I should say, because updated sites don't change, but new sites will get this feed, and we just want to make sure that it contains actually helpful and relevant information.
How does
let's see.
How does it work now? What does it deliver at the moment? Does it deliver every blog article that we write, for example, or do we have to just tick a box that says promoted?
It's more explicit than that. That there's a new content type on backdropcms.org that specifically only like short little things about, like, create something that's going to show up on everybody's site. So,
So
we
we
thought
basically,
that was a good.
yeah. So
We
if
thought that was
if
a good way of reducing the accidental "oops, we're delivering,"
Okay.
a blog post
Yeah.
to this, and it also makes it so that we can point to anything, because it's just it's just a link and a text is all that it is.
That was my point. Yeah, sounds good.
I think, Tim, you can refresh my memory. I don't even think it doesn't even necessarily link. Yeah, it doesn't even link to anything like a particular node ID. It's just literally an arbitrary URL. So we could link to anywhere on the web if we wanted to.
Yeah, I was just adding a comment though that I think we need to be careful about that. And I'm hoping that like 99% of the time those links will go to our site or our blog or someplace where we can give people a little bit more context than just a string of text that links somewhere.
Right.
It'd be good to have like a little paragraph that's like, this is why this particular thing is relevant to you, and then give them a link to whatever external resource we need to, just for a little better framing. But
if someday we have like, I don't know, BackdropCon or something like that, we might have other official properties that we might link off to. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, policy decision is in 625. And then that policy, then we just have to create content on backdropcms.org that then is in line with that. The second issue with the news block is that it's currently fetching on demand every single page request from backdropcms.org, which could be a potential performance issue for both the backdrop sites and for backdropcms.org, possibly. And so issue 4254 changes the way that the news feed is fetched so that it uses a cache, first of all, and secondly, updates on cron jobs instead of on demand. So there's just some optimizations in there. The pull request is ready, but it has new tests, and that new test coverage currently isn't passing. So it would be great if we can get the tests passing, but if there's an issue with that, and turns out to be difficult to test because it's pulling from a feed, then we could potentially like rework those tests just to remove the parts that aren't working correctly.
So Nate, I haven't tested this or looked closely at what you're talking about, but my experience with the pull request is that if I changed or updated the notifications on backdrop.org, I had to like jump through hoops to get it to show up on a site. So there was some sort of caching going on, and I couldn't figure out what it was.
And that's supposed to happen.
I'm talking about before. That was before we did the last release. So before your pull request.
Oh, you're saying that right now it
does not update right away. When I
think the cache is on backdropcms.org's side, that the feed is cached.
The feed, and there's a lot of layers. Like I think the feed that got generated is cached. I also think that Nginx has a cache of it. Backdrop has like a anonymous cache. So like when you try and make an update, you're like, okay, I made an update. Okay, I cleared the cache. Okay, I cleared the Nginx cache, and then you still have to wait like 2 hours for some reason. I think like your site itself like won't get a new copy for a while. So there's like a whole bunch of like, I don't know.
It's not that important. I mean, we will not be delivering highly critical messages there. At some point, people will see them.
But it is good to know that if we make a mistake, we're going to have to live with it for a few hours.
Yeah.
So
we could just set the time to live on those pages to be a bit shorter.
Yeah, but it works the other way as well, Jen. So if we make a mistake and realize that it was made early on, it won't get
propagated for a couple of hours.
Yes. So we have time to fix it.
As long as it's not a new mistake. If it's an old mistake, fine. New mistake goes out right away and you can't change it.
Yes, exactly.
I'm checking how long that cache is right now. Let's see, it is looks like it's 5 minutes right now. Yeah, 5 minutes.
On what? Which
on
cache?
the feed on the feed.
The
page cache and the Nginx cache have
are
the same lifetime.
Okay.
So it's 5 minutes.
And how long is it for your site between checking for new posts?
So right now it's every time you load the dashboard, which is the problem. But the new update makes it once every 6 hours.
Okay.
I think it's every 6 hours. I'd have to look again, but I think that's roughly what about the time length.
Okay. Well, the 5-minute cache doesn't explain the 2-hour delay we saw.
Yeah, I don't
Is
remember that long.
Is that actually how long it was?
I don't know. It seemed like that long. I don't know. We didn't have a timer. You never know. 5 minutes can feel like 2 hours, but
I don't remember how long it was. I just remember that I tried like clearing my local cache. I tried clearing the backdrop.org cache. I tried running cron, and nothing changed it. It could have only been 5 minutes, but I just did so much in that 5 minutes.
Right.
It felt like a lifetime.
okay. Well, let's not worry about it and just make a mental note that like might take a while.
Okay, so those issues, and specifically that one about the caching, I think is, in my opinion, the only critical issue that we really have for 115. There's 2 other follow-up issues that we have tracking in the 115 milestone that are related to user interface changes and potentially like strings and descriptions on things. We added a feature that makes it so you can toggle whether or not the hover effect applies to the drop-down menus that are in core via the smarts menus drop-down library. And so issue 4253 is about showing like how we expose that option to users. The option is already there, but we're going back and forth about what the option should say in its label and what, if any, description text it should have. The big question on that one is that we're not actually sure under what circumstances the option actually applies, whether it's large screens or touch devices or some combination of the two.
So if we don't know how it works, trying to explain that to someone else isn't going to work either.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to do some device testing and figure out exactly what the effect of that option is, and that way we can describe it adequately. So let's see, that issue is 4253. And then we added a feature to make it so that new menu items can be created automatically when you create a piece of content without specifying any menu settings. So there's basically just a default menu item in which you can place new pieces of content. So we have an issue similar for terminology changes and things like that at 4251, where, oh, I'm sorry, this isn't terminology. These are enhancements. So we could add additional validation on the content type form, and it would also potentially be nice to make it so that you could set the options for creating a default menu item and then lock it to make it so that users didn't actually see where the menu item was being created or have the option to change it. Right now it's just providing a default. So both of those, though, they can be done follow-ups, but they would be nice to have if we could have some simple implementation that makes those things possible.
So for the lockdown one, would that require adding a new permission or just a setting? Maybe just a setting.
It's similar to sticky and promoted, setting, where right now we have like show hide like sticky and show promote.
Well, it's not show, it's enable. So like if you don't have that on, nobody can set it.
Well, that's the thing, is that you can still set it to be sticky by default.
I don't think you can.
No, you can.
It disappears from the form, like the default form.
That's exactly what it doesn't do now.
Oh, we changed that?
Yeah, we changed that. So the option to set the default is separate from the option to show and hide it. So you can still set the default even if you disable it.
Okay. All right. Then we do the same thing.
Yeah, we changed that, I don't know, 2 or 3 releases ago.
Missed that. I love it when things happen that I don't know about.
So the question is like, do we want to have the same sort of thing for menu settings where you could disable the showing of menu settings, but still populate a default? And that's it. The 115 milestone is pretty empty because, we only have these couple of issues because we only have a couple of days. But hopefully the 115 release will be similarly, low activity because we don't like to change a bunch of stuff right before releases anyway. So we'll get through these. The 114.3 issue queue might actually see the most activity because those are like outstanding bugs that will affect both versions. So that's probably where our attention will be pointed for the next couple of days.
Okay. Nate, I hate to do this, but I was a little distracted. The dashboard thing, the notifications,
Mhm.
your pull requests, is there anything you need from me on those or to get that finished?
On 4254, no, I don't think so. That's just a test that needs to be updated. So I think you're free. You're under no obligation there. The policy decision would be great. You've probably already posted your thoughts there, so I'm not sure if there's anything for you to do there either.
Yeah, he made the recommendation. I said I thought it was perfect. It would be great if we could get one or two other people to weigh on it. Gregory, I don't know if you want to take a look at that.
Yep.
Just so that it's linked in under what news should appear on the dashboard, 625 and backdrop. That's
Okay.
in the backdrop.
Sorry.
It would be nice after we make that decision if that translated into on-page help. You know how content types have help at the top of them.
Yeah.
If we populated the results of that into that field. So
Great idea.
Yeah,
They're on
if
backups and
that
stuff
changes in
already.
the future, we keep updating that description. So yeah, it's easy.
Okay, let's see. I'll at least mention on the air that Doc Wilmot has had some great suggestions for ways that we could potentially improve our pull request review process. What I'd like to do is parlay that discussion until the planning session for the next release. So we'll start talking about Backdrop 116, the next minor release of Backdrop, in a planning session. Our initial thought on that is that we normally do it after the release, like one of the first meetings afterwards, but we won't do it on the 16th just because we want to take the time to celebrate our accomplishments on January 16th, the day after the release of Backdrop 115. And we can talk about any issues that may have occurred during the release. Cross your fingers that won't actually happen. And anything that we need to work on urgently after the release of 115. And then probably, well, at that time, we'll also schedule the planning meeting, but it'll probably be January 23rd, we think. And so that's where we do a little bit of a road mapping workshop to figure out where our primary direction is for 116. And we can also talk about some of these workflow suggestions about how to make it so that we can move more quickly and possibly just allocate our resources in an efficient way.
So does that mean that we should be asking people to review issues that are tagged with milestone candidates or add the milestone candidate label to issues between now and the 23rd? So we have a good list to discuss.
Yes, that
Okay.
would be great. And it also might be a good time for us to look at the issues that we're currently advocating for, the ones that already have things. And if they didn't receive a lot of activity, like possibly pivoting those into either different people or into different issues.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, which that was some of Doc Wilmot's feedback, is that we're kind of, skittering from place to place without a whole lot of strategy.
That's me. That's me. You just described me.
Yeah.
Skitters.
Well, let's talk about that in the planning session, though. I think for today, it's already the end of the hour. So thank everybody for joining this meeting, and thank everybody for all of their hard work on Backdrop 115. And yeah, we'll be seeing the fruits of our labor here in a couple of days. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody out there on the internet, and thank you guys for joining. Bye.